The invisible wife. During a corporate retreat, my husband's colleagues insisted I sit at a different table. No one spoke to me the entire weekend. When I asked my husband, he shrugged, "It's just how things work here." I smiled and said, "Perfect. I have my own way of working too." The next morning, they discovered what I'd done, and panic ensued. Looking back, the signs were always there. The dismissive glances at company parties. The way I was excluded from conversations. How I was treated like an unwelcome guest in my husband's professional life. But I ignored it all because I believed in James. I thought if I just kept trying, if I remained patient and supportive, things would change. They didn't. Instead, I found myself on a corporate leadership retreat that was supposed to be a prestigious honor. James had finally made VP at Meridian Financial, and spouses were invited to the annual executive summit at the Broadmoor Resort in Colorado Springs. I was actually excited. The resort was breathtaking, mountain views, pristine lakes, elegant architecture straight out of a luxury travel magazine. I thought maybe, just maybe, this retreat would be different. That Eleanor Whitman, the CEO, and the rest of the executive team would finally accept me. That we'd connect, network, bond as a corporate family. I was wrong. The first night, we gathered for dinner in a private dining room. The tables were arranged perfectly, gleaming with fine china and crystal. Just as I was about to sit next to James, Eleanor spoke up. "Oh, Melissa will need to sit at the side table," she said, barely looking up from her menu. "We'll be discussing confidential matters." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Excuse me." Richard Bennett, the CFO, didn't even make eye contact. "It's just how we structure these events." I looked at James, waiting for him to say something. To tell them this was ridiculous, that I was his wife, not some random outsider. Instead, he sighed and shrugged. "It's just how they do things," he muttered. "Their way." So I sat at my own table, alone, while the executives and their spouses laughed and talked merely 20 feet away. I should have left right then and there, but I didn't. I stayed, thinking maybe it was just a weird corporate protocol, a one-time thing. It wasn't. The next morning, I woke early, ready to join the group for breakfast and the first activities. I walked down to the resort restaurant, expecting to see them waiting. They weren't there. I texted James. No response. I wandered around for nearly half an hour before I finally found them already seated on the resort's terrace, mid-meal, laughing and chatting like nothing was wrong. I approached, confused. "Why didn't you tell me about breakfast?" Eleanor barely looked up. "We assumed you'd check the itinerary." "It's just how we structure these events," Richard added, buttering his toast. I glanced at James. He was already eating, acting like this was perfectly normal. That was the moment I realized I wasn't part of their world. I never had been. And James? He wasn't on my side. The rest of the retreat followed the same pattern. Every meal, I sat alone. Every activity, I was either excluded or forgotten. They went on a private helicopter tour of the mountains. I found out when I saw the photos on the company's internal social platform. They did a wine tasting with a master sommelier. I only realized when I walked past them in the lobby, dressed up and heading out. I confronted James later that evening. "You could have texted me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He just sighed again, as if I was being difficult. "It's just how they do things." That was the only answer he ever gave me. By the third day, I gave up. I stopped trying. I stopped asking. They wanted me to be invisible? Fine. But they had no idea what was coming, because I had my own way of doing things too. That night, while they were out at a special dinner celebrating the company's record profits, I went back to the hotel room and got to work. I wasn't just sitting at a separate table anymore. I was about to remove myself completely, and they were about to feel it. I opened my laptop and pulled up my email. I checked the confirmation messages, then opened another browser tab. Because guess what? I had organized everything. The retreat venue? Booked under my name. The activities? Reserved with my credit card. The special dinner they were enjoying right now? My reservation. The strategic planning session scheduled for tomorrow, with the high-profile consultant everyone was excited about? I had arranged it all. As James's wife, I had taken on the task of coordinating the logistics when his assistant went on maternity leave 3 weeks before the retreat. Eleanor had been impressed with my efficiency, though apparently not enough to let me sit at the same table. I cancelled everything. One by one, I wiped their plans off the map. Their meeting rooms for the next 2 days? Gone. Their farewell dinner at the 5-star restaurant Eleanor had been talking about all weekend? Not happening. The motivational speaker they'd booked for the closing session? I called his manager and explained there had been a misunderstanding. I even called the spa and politely informed them that Eleanor would not be attending her scheduled massage and facial. Then I packed my bags, called a car service, and left. While they were clinking glasses and toasting to their corporate success, I was already on my way to Denver International Airport. I booked myself on the next flight to San Francisco, reserved a luxury suite at the Fairmont, ordered room service, and sat on the balcony watching the bay, finally at peace. Meanwhile, back in Colorado Springs, panic was about to set in. I woke up in San Francisco feeling refreshed for the first time in days. The morning fog was just beginning to lift over the bay as I sipped my coffee on the balcony. Then my phone started vibrating. James. I let it ring. Then Eleanor. Then James again. Then Richard. I turned my phone on silent and smiled. They had finally noticed I existed. I imagined the exact moment the realization hit them. Eleanor stepping into the conference room, coffee in hand, ready to start the day's strategic planning session, only to find a confused resort manager instead. I'm sorry, Ms. Whitman, but your reservation was cancelled last night. James, scrolling through his emails, discovering a string of cancellation confirmations. Richard, rubbing his temples, listening to Eleanor's voice escalate from mild irritation to full-on screaming. They had no meetings, no activities, no plans. Their perfectly orchestrated retreat had collapsed. I smiled into my coffee cup. A few hours later, when I finally got tired of the silence, I checked my messages. James, where are you? James, what the hell is going on? James, you need to fix this now. I decided to pick up his next call, just for fun. Where are you? James demanded the second I answered. San Francisco. A pause. San Francisco? What the hell are you doing there? Enjoying myself. I could hear voices in the background. Eleanor was yelling at someone, probably a resort employee. Richard was swearing under his breath. You cancelled everything, James finally said, his voice lower now, like he still couldn't quite believe it. Yes. He sucked in a sharp breath. Do you have any idea what you've done? The entire executive team is stranded with no agenda, no meetings. You've humiliated me in front of everyone. Oh no, I said, voice dripping with fake concern. That must be so uncomfortable. James was silent, probably realizing I had used his own words against him. You all wanted me to be separate, I continued. So I gave you what you wanted. This is insane, he snapped. You need to come back and fix this. I laughed. No, James. I really don't. And I hung up. I later found out just how badly things went for them. With the conference rooms all booked by other groups, they had to hold their strategic planning session in the corner of the hotel lobby. The consultant I had cancelled couldn't be rebooked on short notice. The farewell dinner? Fully booked. They ended up eating at the hotel's casual restaurant, surrounded by families with children rather than in the private dining room they'd expected. Eleanor apparently threw a full-on tantrum when she realized her spa appointment was gone. She demanded they fit her in anyway. They didn't. I got all of this from the angry texts James sent later. James, you seriously just left us like this? James, Eleanor is furious. This retreat was supposed to establish my position in the executive team. James, Richard is suggesting they reconsider my promotion. James, I hope you're happy. I was. I thought that would be the worst of it for them, a little inconvenience, a taste of their own medicine. But then something really interesting happened. A few hours later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't James. It was a message from Diane, a former Meridian VP who had left the company 2 years ago. Diane, hey, just wanted to say I heard what happened, and honestly, good for you. I frowned, rereading the message. Diane and I had always gotten along fine, but we weren't exactly close. Wait, what do you mean? Her response made my stomach drop. Diane, they did the same thing to Victor's wife. I sat up straight. Victor had been James's predecessor as VP of Operations. James had always told me Victor left because he couldn't handle the pressure, that his family life suffered because he wasn't cut out for executive leadership. What do you mean? Diane, she went on the executive retreat with him. They treated her like she was invisible the entire time. Made her sit at a separate table, excluded her from activities, acted like she wasn't there. She left halfway through. Victor resigned a month later. My heart pounded. Diane, I didn't say anything before because I figured you knew. But seeing what they did to you, I realized James never told you, did he? No, he hadn't. Because if he had, I never would have gone on this retreat. If he had, I would have known this wasn't just their way, this was a pattern. And James? He had known exactly what was happening, and he had let it happen anyway. That night, James called again. This time, I answered. I need you to fix this, he said immediately, his voice tight with frustration. No, you don't understand. Eleanor is. I understand perfectly, I cut him off. This wasn't about corporate protocols. This was about control. You knew they were going to do this to me, and you let it happen. Silence. Then, who told you that? Bingo. I laughed. So it's true. I wasn't the first. More silence. Then James sighed. Look, Eleanor and Richard can be a little difficult, but they mean well. They're just selective about who they bring into the inner circle. James, they don't even see me as part of your life. He hesitated, and I knew right then and there he wasn't going to fight for me. He never had. Come back, he said instead. Let's fix this. I stared out at the bay, at the boats moving slowly across the water. No, I said, voice steady. I think I've already fixed it. And I hung up. After I ended the call with James, I sat on my balcony, my mind racing. James had known. He had seen this all before, and he still let me walk straight into it. I wasn't just furious anymore, I was done. I poured myself another drink, leaned back in my chair, and tried to enjoy the view. But something was nagging at me. If he had lied about Victor's wife, what else had he lied about? I decided to do some digging. I opened LinkedIn and searched for Victor's name. I had met him briefly at a company holiday party years ago, before he left. His profile was there, showing he now worked for a competitor. I scrolled through his connections, searching for anyone who might be willing to talk. Then I saw his wife's profile, Allison. I had never thought to look her up before, but now I needed answers. Her profile was sparse, but I found a link to her Instagram. It was public, and I scrolled through her posts from 3 years ago, around the time Victor left Meridian. One post caught my eye, a sunset photo with the caption, "Sometimes walking away is the only way forward." #new beginnings, #self-respect. The comment section was even more revealing. One from a woman named Lauren, "So proud of you for not putting up with their toxic games. Victor finally seeing the light is the best outcome." Another from someone named Michael, "Whitman's leadership style is all about isolation and control. You both deserve better." My stomach twisted. This wasn't just about excluding spouses, this was a systematic approach to control. I scrolled further and found an old comment from Diane, "The way they treated you is unforgivable. Glad you're both free now." I sat there, my heart pounding. I didn't know what to do. I could message Allison, I could ask her what really happened. But was I ready to hear it? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then finally, I took a deep breath and typed. Hey, this is going to sound really random, but I think we need to talk. I'm James Harper's wife, at least for now. She responded within minutes. Allison, I was wondering when you'd reach out. That single message hit me like a punch to the stomach. Me, so you know who I am? Allison, yes. And I know what they did to you at the retreat. I stared at the screen, my fingers frozen over the keyboard. Me, how do you know about that? Allison, because it's what they do. It's what they've always done. Victor wasn't the first, and James won't be the last. Eleanor believes that executives need to be solely focused on the company. Partners who don't fit her mold are seen as distractions. My breath caught. Me, what are you saying? Allison, I'm saying Eleanor has done this before. Multiple times. She isolates spouses, makes them feel unwelcome, tests their breaking point. If they fight back, the executive is deemed unable to manage their personal life. If they stay quiet and accept it, they're in the club. I felt sick. This wasn't just some one-off pattern, this was a calculated strategy, a twisted little assessment they ran on every new executive spouse. Me, why didn't anyone warn me? Allison, Victor tried to warn James when he left. James dismissed it as Victor being weak. And Eleanor makes sure new executives are isolated from those who left on bad terms. I closed my eyes. James had never mentioned any conversation with Victor. He had painted Eleanor as a tough but fair leader, someone who demanded excellence but rewarded loyalty. But now I knew the truth. Eleanor wasn't interested in loyalty. She was interested in control. I didn't sleep that night. The realization that I had wasted years of my life with James burned in my chest. But there was something else too, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Why had James called me so many times? Why was he this desperate? Then at 6 a.m., I got my answer. A text popped up from an unknown number. Ma'am, this is Officer Campbell with the San Francisco Police Department. We need to speak with you regarding a missing persons report filed by your husband. I sat up so fast I nearly knocked my phone off the nightstand. Missing persons report? I scrambled to call back, my mind racing. The second the officer picked up, I blurted, I'm fine. I'm not missing. A pause. Then, ma'am, are you saying you left voluntarily? Yes, obviously I left voluntarily. My husband knows exactly where I am. He's been calling me non-stop. The officer sighed. Your husband reported that you left without explanation and haven't been answering his calls. He said he was concerned for your safety and mental state. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. This wasn't concern, this was control. James hadn't been worried about me, he had been trying to force me to come back, to make me look unstable. Officer, I am perfectly fine. I am in San Francisco by choice. I left Colorado Springs voluntarily. I am not missing, and I do not want my husband contacting me. A pause. Would you like to file a formal request for no further contact? I hesitated, then finally exhaled. Yes, I would. And just like that, I put the first legal nail in the coffin of my marriage. Not even an hour later, my phone buzzed with a new text. This time, it was from Eleanor. Eleanor, I cannot believe you would humiliate Meridian like this. I laughed out loud and ignored it. Then another message. Eleanor, you made James involve the police. Do you have any idea how this reflects on the company? Oh, I made James involve the police? I rolled my eyes and took another sip of my coffee. The messages kept coming. Eleanor, this company has done nothing but try to include you appropriately. Eleanor, you're being incredibly selfish and potentially damaging James's career. And finally, Eleanor, if you don't come back and fix the situation, James's position at Meridian will be reconsidered. I froze. It wasn't even subtle, it was a threat. I sat back in my chair, rereading the message over and over. I had thought this was just about control, just about their twisted little corporate culture. But now I realized something much worse. They weren't just trying to humiliate me, they were trying to break me. And if I didn't do something fast, Eleanor was going to make sure James's career paid the price. I stared at Eleanor's text for a long time. If you don't come back, James's position at Meridian will be reconsidered. It wasn't even a warning, it was a promise. I could feel it now, The shift. This wasn't just them being cold or dismissive, this was a battle, and I was supposed to roll over and lose. But I wouldn't. Not this time. I cracked my knuckles, took a deep breath, and sent one single message back. Me, perfect. Let's make things difficult then. Then I reached out to Allison, Diane, and 3 other former Meridian executives I had found online whose spouses had similar experiences. I invited them to a video call that evening. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I booked a conference room at a law firm in San Francisco's financial district. I had my evidence ready, screenshots of Eleanor's threats, testimonials from former executive spouses, a timeline of events showing the pattern of isolation and control. I didn't wait long. At exactly 10 a.m., the door opened. My lawyer entered first, followed by 2 other attorneys I didn't recognize. Then came Eleanor, her face a mask of cold fury. Richard followed, looking uncomfortable. James came in last, his eyes darting around the room nervously. "What is this?" Eleanor demanded, her voice sharp as a knife. I smiled, calm and collected. "A conversation. You've been so eager to talk, so let's talk." Richard shifted in his seat. "Is this really necessary?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Because what you've been doing isn't just cruel, it's potentially illegal." Eleanor scoffed. "Illegal? Don't be ridiculous." My lawyer slid a folder across the table. "Ms. Whitman, we have documentation of what appears to be a pattern of psychological harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and most recently, what could be construed as blackmail." Eleanor's face paled slightly as she flipped through the pages. Inside were statements from Allison, Diane, and 3 other former executive spouses, all describing similar experiences of isolation and humiliation. "This is absurd," she said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. I leaned forward. "Is it? Because last night you threatened my husband's career if I didn't come back and play by your rules. That's not just bullying, that's potentially criminal." Richard cleared his throat. "Eleanor, perhaps we should." "Be quiet," she snapped. I turned to James. "Did you know this is what they do to everyone? That they've been playing this game for years?" James looked down at his hands. "I heard rumors, but I didn't think." "You didn't think," I cut him off. "Or you didn't care. Either way, you let it happen." Eleanor's lawyer spoke up. "These accusations are serious but unsubstantiated." My lawyer smiled thinly. "Actually, we have emails, texts, and witnesses. And we're prepared to take this to court if necessary." The room fell silent. I could see the wheels turning in Eleanor's head, calculating the potential damage to Meridian's reputation if this became public. "What do you want?" she finally asked, her voice cold. I laid out my terms: a clean divorce with fair settlement for me, no retaliation against James professionally, and most importantly, a complete overhaul of Meridian's executive retreat policies. And I added, a formal acknowledgement of what you've been doing and an apology to everyone affected. Eleanor laughed, but it was hollow. "You expect me to apologize for maintaining professional boundaries?" "No," I said calmly. "I expect you to apologize for psychological manipulation and creating a toxic culture that has driven away talented people." I pushed a document across the table, a draft of the story I planned to take to the business press if my terms weren't met. The headline read, "Meridian Financial's CEO used psychological warfare on executive spouses." Eleanor's face hardened as she read it. "This is blackmail." "No," I smiled. "This is just how I do things." The settlement was finalized within a week. Eleanor didn't apologize publicly, but she did agree to all my other terms. James kept his job, though he was moved to a different division. I got a generous divorce settlement that allowed me to start over. Most importantly, Meridian changed its policies. No more separate tables, no more exclusion. Partners were either fully included or not invited at all, no middle ground. I moved permanently to San Francisco, found a beautiful apartment overlooking the bay, and started my own event planning business. It turned out I had a talent for organization and handling difficult people. 6 months later, I received a text from James. I see it now. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Because for the first time in years, I was free. The end.